Welcome to the extended essay and how to support your students through the new process. This is in demand for requests on Facebook for me to do something like this, and I hope you will find it helpful. So, first of all, planning for the future. May 2018 is when the new criteria for the extended essay are put into action and all assessment is done through the new criteria. So I'm going to split this webinar into 3 sessions. What has changed, what is the same, and what I call the EE Expedition. I call it an expedition because it is really a venture into uncharted territory, and planning is vital just as it is for any expedition. So first of all, what has changed? All right, so the changes for May 2018 are there are many fewer assessment criteria, and assessment criteria E is actually assessment of the reflections on planning and progress form that the students now have to submit with their extended essay. The criteria total is 34. The research question is now mandatory. Nobody can get away without it, and it has to be in the introduction. The abstract is no longer required. The reflections on planning and progress form is mandatory and, of course, is assessed using criterion E. The researcher's reflection space is recommended. This is a space where students reflect on their progress so far, an informal space, but it's the reflections they can then use and pull forward into the reflections on planning and progress form and write in a more formal way. And finally, the recommendation is for size 12 readable font and double-spaced. And actually, these are direct instructions rather than just a recommendation. Okay, so let's have a look at new assessment criteria. There are 5 assessment criteria. Focus, method, and engagement are all out of 6. The biggie is critical thinking, which is out of 12. And presentation, which every student should really be able to do, is out of 4. And this is what it looks like if we break it down and make a pie chart out of it. So total marks 34, and you can see that large green space, a lot of points for critical thinking there. So what hasn't changed? Well, the good news is that the extended essay is pretty much the same, apart from having no abstract and having to be typed in 12-point format and double-spaced. It remains a 4,000 words personal in-depth study, formally presented structured writing that uses only secondary data for psychology, remember. Okay, so not such big changes there. So, how should the students get started? Well, as with every expedition, it really helps to have a little bit of visualization before we get started. So the students should try and visualize their journey. This sort of visualization is fine. This one is not. We do hope that they will take a straightforward route from beginning to end with maybe slight interesting deviations on the way. Not that they will wander around in the woods in the fog. So let's hope all goes well. So planning this expedition. Well, the extended essay is supposed to take about 4 to 8 months from beginning to end. Each student is supposed to spend about 40 hours on it, and that's not 40 hours of writing. It's probably only about 15 hours of writing. It's 25 hours, at least, of research. They need to choose the area and develop their research question, plan the route, read as they write their first draft, and then when the first draft has been assessed, unless the supervisor says there is a need for more reading, stop reading and write the final submission. That's the hard bit. Sometimes it's very hard to get students to actually stop reading and stop writing more and more. But adding description does nothing to improve marks. Okay. The student chooses the question, the student chooses the question, the student chooses the research question, not you. So you keep quiet while they are choosing their topic, doing their research, coming up with their question, planning their extended essay, one side of A4, and then you can step in and accept or reject or refine their plans. By all means, if they get stuck, you can help, but the word is help. This has to be an independent piece of work where you lend support. You're not dragging them through it, you're there to lend support when they get stuck. The student who is totally stuck for a topic could maybe focus and extend a learning outcome. So, you can check on the suitability of their topic at the beginning, suggest where they can access sources, check their research question to make sure it is focused, review their one-side plan, and of course you do advise on whether you're going to accept, reject or demand revisions before they go ahead and do any more research. Now, this is how I feel an extended essay should look. There's no official guidance given, so how I came up with this is by reading a lot of very good extended essays from the Online Curriculum Centre and from some of my students who tended to do quite well at extended essays. So, the suggested structure is only a suggestion that the student takes at least 500 words and up to about 700 words on the introduction and the research question. Then the main theory, their main argument, what they believe to be the case, perhaps the line that follows, to what extent. That should take at least, I'd say at least 1700, 1800 words. It needs to be outlined, the argument needs to be developed, and the argument needs to be evaluated. And of course, as soon as they start evaluating the argument, that leads them into alternative theories, because they use alternative theories to evaluate their argument. So for the alternative theories, maybe they should spend 700, 800 words on the alternative theories and development and evaluation of alternative arguments, and then another 500 to 700 on their conclusion. And that should all add up safely to 4,000 words. Do encourage the students to use the whole 4,000 words, not 3,200 or even 3,500. The reason why it's set at 4,000 words is it should be a matter of cutting it down to 4,000, not padding it out to 4,000. If it has to be padded out to reach 4,000, then the argument has not been made sufficiently well, and there's not sufficient knowledge and understanding in it. So, what is a suitable topic? Here are some examples. Lucid dreaming is a topic that one of my students came up with, and I told him he couldn't do until he'd proved to me it wasn't pop psychology, and there were peer-reviewed articles in recognised psychology journals about it. He proved that to me. He got a B. He did a very good extended essay on it. So feel free to challenge your students to prove to you that this is something that there is plenty of research on. Examples of focused questions. This was his question. Another focused question there, a very interesting one. A biology higher level student chose that one. To what extent is sleep related to learning in young children? Another interesting one. And the final one, to what extent do mirror neurons play a role in empathy? There's a very good example on the Online Curriculum Centre of that essay, which actually got 36 out of 36 under the old mark scheme. On the way, students will need an argument. They will need resources. Please help them with this because they will not necessarily have a clue of where to look. They will need enthusiasm, not you, them. They need to care about what they're researching. They need to try and choose something that matters to them, that inspires them. And they do need to stop periodically and reflect where they are going. This is where their research space would be handy, their journal, something like that. Has the argument changed, which is okay? Has it wandered? That means they're wandering around in the woods again in the fog. That is not okay. They have to remember that the conclusion has to answer the research question. That is the purpose of the conclusion, is to pull together their answer to their research question. The whole essay answers it, but the conclusion pulls together that answer. So here are the new criteria. Criterion A, okay, the topic is communicated accurately and effectively. Right, this is on the focus. Okay, one good way to encourage your students to do well with the criterion A, get them to give a short presentation to your psychology class. Of course, not everybody in your psychology class will be doing a psychology extended essay, but you may find 3 or 4 of them are. Give them just 20 minutes, 5 minutes each to do a presentation to the class. This will make them refine their ideas. Use the librarian for sources. Your school should have databases. It is actually a requirement of the IB that the school does have access to databases, or at least one good database that will support students in their extended essay. Maybe there's a university nearby where they can access sources. A good tip is to sandwich the introduction between the research question. This student has a research question, to what extent do mirror neurons play a role in empathy? She starts her introduction with it, and at the end of her introduction, she says, therefore, alternate theories of empathy have to be considered in order to examine to what extent do mirror neurons play a role in empathy, and then she's taking us straight into the body of the essay. Criterion B is knowledge and understanding. Knowledge and understanding is best exhibited by detailed examination of the material and by using the correct terminology, use of terminology and concepts. And again, this student has done this here. She's talking about a desynchronization in the mu rhythm, which is a type of brain wave when participants performed and observed an action. She's talking about the limitations of this, and she's talking about how these fluctuations only provide indirect evidence for the existence of a human mirror neuron system. So she's showing good knowledge and understanding. Critical thinking. This is the most challenging part for all students and sometimes for supervisors to know when they're seeing it. There should be a forward momentum to the argument. Ask so what questions. If a student says something lacks ecological validity, which is a phrase I'm learning to hate, throw so what back at him or her. Who cares? How is that relevant to what you're asking? Then when they give you the reason for why this is a problem, say this is what has to go in their essay. Have students explain research. How is it relevant? What argument does it advance? And what is the light at the end of the tunnel? What is going to be the final conclusion? And what analysis is needed to get us there? Here, at the end, the examiner has actually underlined the critical thinking that this student has used. Okay, they're saying that the social cognitive argument about self-efficacy that's put forward by Bandura, which is a positive belief in oneself and one's ability to do something, they're saying that that actually does not contradict completely the existence of mirror neurons, but might provide an explanation for why some people show more empathy than others, even if the mirror neuron action seems to be the same. Presentation, it should be good. Students are given a lot of guidance on how to present things. They should make sure they have title page, table of contents, page numbers, and bibliography. The bibliography can be split into works cited and works consulted, or references can come inside the bibliography, or the bibliography might be all references if a student has chosen to use everything they've read. Chances are there will be a section of works cited within the bibliography, and there will be a section that is purely works looked at but not actually used in the final extended essay. And then the engagement. The reflections on the decision making and the planning. The student has to reflect on the RPPF form 3 times, and the reflection should be no more than a total of 500 words for all 3 times, which is not a lot of words. They'll be well advised to think carefully about their reflection. They reflect once at the start, once in the middle, and once at the end. Their Viva Voce can be part of their reflection, how they felt that went, how that gathered their thoughts. And this is when you meet for the last time formally with the student, is for the Viva Voce. It should take about 20 minutes. First thing you need to do is read the whole extended essay from start to finish and make notes on anything you'd like to ask. And then here's an example of some questions that you can ask for the Viva Voce. Okay, and just to remind you, we have some webinars coming up in the new year in March, April, May and June on the new IB Psychology syllabus. The first one will be an overview, and then the next 3 will look at different sections of the core, the 3 different approaches. So please contact us if you have any questions, follow us on Twitter, join the Facebook community and keep watching the webinars. Thank you. Goodbye.